The Ready for a Relationship podcast helps people just like you who find themselves single and alone in their later years get unstuck and break the pattern to move forward and build the loving relationship you expected to have at this point in your life. Discover how to build your relationship with confidence in a fun, easy, loving way so that you are the right person for your right person. And if you enjoy the show and want to share some love, subscribe, rate, review, leave a comment. It all really helps. Here's Suzanne, the host of your show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Ready for a Relationship podcast. I'm Suzanne, and I'm here with Shawn. Welcome, Shawn.
Hey, everybody.
So today, folks, we're going to talk about the relationship that perhaps your parents didn't teach you. Many of our listeners may have grown up in a situation where they had a loving environment. However, I know for a fact many did not. And There's a lot of dysfunctions that can go on in families and relationships and things that we saw in our parents that maybe are affecting our lives now. Right, Shawn?
Absolutely. And not just that, but if you look at statistics, they show that, let's just say about 50% of marriages break down. So right there's a dysfunctional family or a family that is not going to be a great example because the marriage already broke down and children seeing that as example. But even some of them that stay together, it's not a great example either. So let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm. In fact, you had an example, something that you wanted to share.
Well, okay. So as an example, I was talking to one fellow today and he says, Shawn, he says, I screwed up for the first 5 years of our marriage. I'm like, what are you talking about? Tell me more about that. What's that about? He's a very funny guy. He says, think about it. He says, my mother immigrated not to Canada, to the United States. He said, she never spoke great English. She never had much of an education. She's just doing her best to keep a roof over our head. And my dad, he just was gone. So he never had any input either. So there I was with no example and nobody that could teach me because my father wasn't there and my mother was, she was just doing her best to keep a roof over our head. So he said, I had to figure it out on my own. So for the first 5 years, I was in a relationship. Luckily, he says, I had a great woman. My wife was great. But for the first 5 years, I screwed up. And then when I finished screwing up, I screwed up again. And he kept screwing up. And he went on to say, which I know this now, they've been together for a long time. They have a beautiful family of 3 kids, etc. But there was many times along the way where it was really difficult. And here's the challenge with that. If we look at 50% of the marriages out there breaking up, which means those kids are getting not having a great example. And if you don't have a great example and you screw up for the first 5 years, maybe a bunch more marriages break up inside those 5 years because the two parties didn't know how to work it out and how to make it come together. They didn't have any example or any way to make it come together. And here's another challenge that happens is suddenly, if this keeps repeating itself, so let's say, this happened for him when he was younger, but let's say you're 50 and still screwing up in your relationships. And if you go another 5 years, you're 55 and then you're 60. Well, where and how does it ever end? Tell me that.
Oh, let's talk about that in this podcast. Let's give everybody hope. Let's give everybody a method, something they can use. But before we get to that, let's first hash out, put on the table all the types of dysfunctional relationships we may have seen from our parents or other people in our family. Okay, so let's see who resonates with these. How about parents fighting, alcohol abuse, straight out divorce, parents or people around you that didn't know how to communicate? One was dominant, perhaps one was passive. Abusive relationships, physical or mental. One isn't happy or both aren't happy, but they stay in the relationship for the sake of the kids.
Oh.
And then there's infidelity. Who's saying, yep, been there, done that, know that?
Yeah. I'm sure that's quite a list you put together there, Suzanne.
Yeah.
And so true, right?
Yeah.
So many people have one or several of those in their background. And then as they go forward, they're measuring their relationships based on what they learned from other dysfunctional relationships, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. And it's based on, everyone take note, it's based on what you saw, what you know, what you figure is the truth of a relationship. So if by any chance you find yourself having repeated any of those scenarios, I really hope that you understand it was just an unawareness on your part. You were not consciously aware that there could be a different type of relationship for you.
Right. And you hit that. And that's something that people have to catch, is that people may have grown up in those kind of situations, and that's what they know. So they don't know that it could be better.
Right.
They think that's how relationships are. I saw that with my parents, and I saw that with my aunt, and I saw that. So that's the way it is. But so the first thing that has to happen is they got to get to a state of knowing. They've got to know that, wait a minute, is it true for everyone? Because you remember, you got to ask that question. Is it true for everyone? And if you can say, well, it's not true for everyone. Oh, so it's not true for everyone, but it was true in my family line, but it's not true for everyone. And by the way, look at those people. Those are my friends over there, and they have a great relationship. And those are, and pretty soon you start to realize, oh, it could be different. So once you have the knowing, so first thing you got to do is get to the knowing that, oh, my example of a relationship that I have from my parents, it doesn't have to be that way. And then two, you've got to make a decision and choose to make a better relationship. You've got to get there. Otherwise, nothing changes, right? You just repeat, rinse and repeat.
Right. Right. And I got to go backwards for a second, because you were talking earlier and I thought we actually in our past, when our kids were younger, we had friends that were always bickering with each other. Okay. Married couple, always bickering. Best way I can say it. And our kids were kind of like, that what are you, they were wondering, and they actually, one of them asked outright, what's going on here? And one responded, that's just how we show each other we love each other, dear. The bickering.
Okay, if it works for you.
How's that for a teaching moment, right?
Wow.
Okay, so it's all about the things we saw in our past that even as young children, we pick up, that's the way it should be. That's the way it is. That's just life. You have parents or examples, they're not happy together, they stay together. You think you just have to stick it out, make it work. Let's talk about something different. Let's talk about something happier.
Huh.
Yes? Yes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So Shawn and I, folks, we have 4 steps for you. And Shawn already talked a little bit about 1 and 2, but let me restate them because they're super powerful. So if you've seen these relationships happening in your parents or anyone close to you as you were growing up, and then perhaps inadvertently even repeated it in your past relationships, and you say, man, you're like, why does this keep happening to me? Right? If you're there, number one, know that you can have something different.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And Shawn was already talking about the knowing, because if you're running on autopilot and you don't know that something could be different, you'll never get your something different because you don't realize it's out there.
Right. Exactly. You have
So,
to become aware of that.
yes. So number one, become aware that you can have something different. And number two is choose to create that something different. Okay.
Right. Choose the better relationship you want to have and create it. Absolutely.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And Suzanne, here's the thing. Sometimes I'm talking to people about that, and we talk about that, creating a new something different, right? But it's so easy to say that. You're going to say, oh, create something different. But they're like, oh, wait a minute. How do I do that? They're like no idea. Well, how do I create something different? Because their example of what's a real relationship is not what they're trying to do. So what would they do? What would you suggest they do?
Well, that's where we would go into number three. Look around you for examples of something different, something better.
So we're back to what I said earlier is it true for you, or is it true for everyone, right? Or just true for you? Right. And then if it's not true for everyone, you start to realize that, yeah, they have a nice relationship, and yeah, they have a nice relationship. And there's where you start to pick out the people, and you say, I'd like a relationship like theirs, right?
It's choosing the role models.
Okay.
So let's be aware that any specific person or couple, we may not like everything they do, but maybe we really like the way they interact with each other. So let's talk about the good things that you can have in a relationship and that you can bring to a relationship. Because potentially we've got... Go ahead.
Good things. I was thinking of another couple that I know, and they actually put each other down.
Oh, that's not a good thing.
No, but the good thing is when you see a couple that uplifts each other always, he uplifts her and encourages her. She uplifts him and encourages him. And they are together in that, helping empower each other. That is super powerful.
That is super powerful. Anybody who's hearing my phone ding, it's like before you do a podcast, turn off your sound on your phone. I just muted myself, folks. All right. So let's talk about the good things. You're right, because sometimes we see what we don't like, what we don't want, or what we're tired of. And we say, I want something different. What's the opposite? And anyone who's familiar with the teaching of Abraham Hicks would say, when you find something you don't like, it shoots up a rocket of desire of what you do want. So let's look at some of the things. I made some notes. If you see me looking down, I'm looking at those. Talking about good communication. Okay. How about in your relationship? You don't want to be second guessing what the person is saying. You don't want them to talk in a roundabout way. You want good communication. Or how about respect? Right? Even just talking about that, I'm sitting more upright. I'm feeling that respect. Working together, like you said, Shawn, uplifting and supporting each other, feeling confident. How about that? How would that feel in a relationship, folks? You can have it.
To me, those are normal basics, the basics of a foundation to build a relationship on. But many people that I've talked to them, it's not their basics. It's not. They don't. It doesn't come out that way. Their relationship isn't like that. They don't uplift each other. They nitpick each other. They put each other down. Some people are like that. They're in that kind of relationship. And all of these things that you just mentioned, to have good communication, to be clear about what you want, all of those things is building a foundation for a better relationship going forward. Mm-hmm. And that's, we can't be perfect. Nobody's going to be perfect. And when Suzanne says, well, you might find somebody that you think they have a great relationship, but you only like this portion of their relationship, but you don't jive with that over there. Well, that's okay. Take the portion that you really like and implement that into your relationship. And something that is really powerful is when you can share that and articulate that clearly to a person when you're looking for a partner, and you can clearly articulate to them what you're looking for in a relationship, what your expectations are of that relationship. That'll empower everybody.
Mm-hmm. You're in my head, because that's point number 4, is creating the expectation. But before we get into the expectation, let's flesh out more number 3, looking for the role models. Okay?
Right.
Getting the guidance from the people that you admire their relationship. Sure. Looking for the role models. Listen to how couples talk to each other. Mm-hmm. Are they loving? Are they supportive? Are they respectful? Are they having fun?
Loving, supportive, respectful. I've talked to people and they say, Shawn, I never even saw my parents kiss. Mm. I never saw them hold hands. I never saw them cuddle together on the couch. And this is things that they discover that they'd like to have in their own relationship. They never saw it in their parents, right?
Mm-hmm. It's exactly it. So look for the role models and make your own decisions. Decide the relationship you want to have. Because I'm going to tell you straight out, just because you maybe did not see it in your parents, maybe you did not have it in a past relationship, does not mean you cannot have it in a current or future relationship. We get to choose right now. We get to choose. And Shawn and I are here to tell you folks that it is possible. It's possible with the choice and the decision. And when you do that, we move into number 4, which is the expectation of a great relationship. Mm-hmm. And let's flesh out the expectation a little bit, Shawn. It's important, I believe, that everybody define what that great relationship means to them.
Right. And that is important. And important, like knowing how your spouse will support you no matter what. That's important. And one of the things that we did early on is we decided that no matter what happened, if I said something that you didn't agree with, you would still stand alongside me. If we were in a social setting, you would still stand alongside me. And then later, when we're in private, we might discuss that. Hey, you know what? When you said that, I wasn't sure I went along. I wasn't sure I felt that way. But in the moment, we stood together. Because one of our other rules is nobody will come between us. We'll always stand together. So knowing that, now we're supporting each other no matter what. And later in private, we might have a conversation about that. Hey, you know what? That happened, and I'm not sure I totally agree with that. Let's discuss that. And now you have totally open adult conversation about that, and you get to a point of where you have an understanding. okay, I understand now why you might have felt that way. And okay, and then going forward, let's make sure if that ever happens again, we'll deal with that in this way. Okay, and now we know, because we're partners, right? And we want to be working together and supporting each other. So it's a beautiful thing when you start to lay that foundation and you communicate what you want and what your expectations are within the relationship to your partner. So your partner knows and you understand. And guess what, folks? You're not always going to agree. You're going to have to work it out. That's what we have to do, right?
Really, Shawn?
Yeah, you got to work it out. I always think of these Hallmark movies where, anything happens, the phone rings and that's it. Their whole relationship's on hold for 3 years because, hey, another man phoned her. And it's like, no, folks, you got to work it out. That's not real, right? You just have to have a conversation.
Can you tell I've made Shawn watch a few Hallmark movies with me?
Too many.
You're such a good man, Shawn.
Okay, well, I just don't think it's a great example.
It's not. But it's fun. Sometimes it's just fun.
Right.
So let's go back to the expectation. All right. I'm going to give you guys some ideas. First, by the time this podcast is over in a few minutes, I want you to pull out a notebook or pull out your phone and start making notes of the things you want. Don't be thinking about the things you've had. Don't be thinking about the way you think it has to work or the past experiences. Be thinking about, or the how, correct?
Right.
Be thinking about how you would like your current or your future relationship to be. First, start with that. And then if you're still in the dating world, go out into the dating world with the expectation that this is what I desire and this is what I deserve. And by the way, if you're desiring and feeling deserving of that, please exhibit those characteristics to your date or your life partner right now. Okay? Because you cannot expect to just get, I'm going to sit back and I want them to honor me and love me and communicate with me and treat me well, but I'm not going to do any of that for them. It doesn't work that way. It also doesn't work if you sit back and you say, I'm going to find out if they're this way to me first. And if they are, then I'm going to give back to them. Please don't do that either, because that's setting yourself up for failure.
Right.
Come into the date, come into the relationship expecting and talking about the good communication, the things that are important to you. Give them a compliment, talk positive about them. All the things that you want someone to give you, please go forth and exhibit that. And do not accept less. And in that, you will feel your power. All of a sudden, the dates that you go on won't feel like, oh, I just have to tolerate this. I wonder if this will be the same situation again. You're going to go forward with a sense of expectancy that things will be great. And chances are, if you develop that expectancy so well, chances are if they don't go great, you're going to say, that's weird. Right. That's weird. How did I attract that person that wasn't in alignment with me?
Right, exactly. Well, and it works in the other side too. So if you want an example of that, right? Because people say, lots of times I talk to folks and they say, oh, they're all the same. All the guys I meet are the same, or all the girls are the same, or I go on a date and it's always the same. Why? Because they're affirming to me right now, it's always going to be the same. They think it'll be the same. They expect it to be the same. They keep getting the same, right? And that's exactly what will happen in this scenario if you change your expectation.
Right.
Because when they're saying to me with emotion, Suzanne, with emotion, Shawn, you don't get it. They're all the same. And they're putting that emotion into it and they're anchoring it into themselves. They're all the same. So of course, what comes to you? Mm-hmm. Always all the same, always happens over again. So that's where if we can break that cycle and create a new thinking of how we want our relationship to be, and literally take the time to write it out, take the time to articulate it to people, take the time to put that energy out there, you will attract a new reality and have a new result. And you'll say, oh, wow, I keep meeting the nicest people everywhere I go. And you will, right? But you got to get there.
That's a thing of beauty. Thank you. So let's just quickly review the points so that you too can have the relationship that you desire, not necessarily the relationship that you've seen in the past or the relationship that perhaps your parents didn't teach you could have.
Right.
Okay. So that is number 1, know you can have something different. Number 2, choose to create that something different and itemize it. Decide what it is that you want. Right. 3, look for your role models. And 4, create the expectation. And Shawn and I can guarantee life for you is going to be different. It's going to take the commitment for the refocus, but it will create different things to happen to you. And I invite all of our listeners, if you're like, but guys, I need to talk about something that's special to me, you don't understand. Let us know. Let us help you through that. If you hit a roadblock and you say, I want this, but I don't seem to be getting it, let us know. Tell us about that. This is interactive. We welcome you either to interact with us one-on-one or even invite you to come on a podcast and we'll discuss it. And I guarantee helping you will help so many others.
That's true.
So folks, let's create the beautiful relationship that maybe our parents didn't teach us about. And Shawn and I welcome you to come to our brand new website. If you haven't seen it yet, it's just gone live. It's www.readyforarelationship.com. We've got more podcasts there. We've got some blogs there. We've got a masterclass there for you, brand new masterclass just done. Only 16 minutes of some pretty good stuff, if I may say so myself, because I created it. I'm talking on it. Please join us there. Have a look and let's empower you to have your best relationship ever. Thank you, Shawn, for joining us.
Great. I'm happy to be here.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Here we are at the end of the podcast, and you just got some Suzanne loving. If you got value out of this podcast and you want to spread some love too, subscribe, rate, review, leave a comment. And who was it that you were thinking about who could also be uplifted by it? Share it with them now. Catch you next time.